Siblings and sisters and brothers in faith, welcome to Tuesdays for Nurture. This is a webinar series where we faithfully focus on education for the people of God. And we've got topics wide-ranging from faith-filled politics to the interviews of key leaders to how-tos in congregational life and the impacts of current realities on the life of the church. And each webinar will include clear suggestions on what you can do to change the church and the world towards the world God imagines for all of us. And you all will be very tickled because today's conversation will include lots of these resources about where to go from here. Into April of 2020, so imagine back, it's been a year, we're all holding so much since then. The Wisconsin Conference in the United Church of Christ began offering these weekly drop-in supports for faith formation leaders about how to do all of these things on the platforms that we have access to. And so we thought it would be a really amazing case study to bring together some of these leaders and begin to have those conversations and show what has happened there and how we can look going forward and where you can access the collective wisdom that they have really compiled throughout all this time. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Lisa Hart, who is on the Wisconsin Conference. She is a faith formation practitioner, a leader within Aussie, a leader within the United Church of Christ, and a leader in so many other ways in and outside of the work that you do. So welcome, Lisa. I want to invite you to let us all know both, like, how did this start and what is it that we can learn from it before we introduce the rest of our panelists?
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to be with everyone today. So as Chris was saying, last April, shortly after the pandemic had really taken hold, I decided that I wanted to find a way to reach out to faith formation practitioners. My role in the Wisconsin Conference is as the Associate Conference Minister for Faith Formation and Justice Ministries. So of course, I have an interest in how to best resource and serve the people in our conference and beyond. But I also am in my 5th year of working toward a master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I was really interested in how people were doing and how we could provide a network of support for people. I was recognizing that there was increased stress and isolation. I was hearing a lot about this in regards to our clergy and the stress of adapting their worship services, but I was not hearing as much about how our faith formation people were doing. And I knew that they were also needing to adapt a lot, and there were a lot of demands being placed on them. So I wanted to provide a space. It was an attempt to create some community, to help people feel connected, and also to create a hub where we could share ideas and resources to support each other in the adaptations that were needing to be made. And then one really important piece for me was that it be a drop-in group, because I wanted to provide a space for people to come for support and to share resources, but not create one more commitment or expectation that was being placed on them. So today we do have 4 members of our group who will join us on the panel, and I would like to introduce them to you. The first is Karen Smith. Oh, Karen, you want to unmute yourself. Yeah.
It's very nice to be here and to talk with you all. Thank you.
And we have Jason Princer.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here from sunny Iowa. No, I'm in Illinois.
And Jen Ringgold.
Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you today.
And Barb Townsend.
Hi, and happy spring from Wisconsin.
I hope it is spring for all of us, no matter where we are. In the midst of all of this, you know, the folks on this team represent in so many different ways the entry points into ministry. So rather than just knowing where they're from, I'm going to invite you to go a little bit deeper. You know, what is it that you're doing with whom, and how is that something that, you know, folks who are watching alongside us or listening alongside us have their own entry points within. So Barb, tell us a little bit more about what you're up to.
Okay, I live in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, which is a town of about 10,000 people. We are located in the southeast corner of the state. My church is the First Congregational United Church of Christ. We have 149 members, so we are definitely a small congregation. I had always volunteered for working with kids in Sunday school through the years, but when we moved to a team approach for running our church, that sort of got morphed into volunteering as the faith formation leader. One thing that makes my situation more unique is the fact that our pastor of 24 years left at the start of this year. So that was a huge change for us. Our interim pastor began on March 1st. So our next step will be to start the process of finding a called pastor. So there's lots to do in the coming months, but I'm definitely looking forward to the process.
I love that you've identified that you're in a small church. As many of you know and resonate with, most of the churches in the United Church of Christ are small churches, and that is a place of pride. So from here, Jen, can you tell us a little bit more about where you are and what you're up to?
Absolutely. I live in Midland, Michigan, a town with over 100 churches, of which one of them is a small UCC church. For the last 8 years, I have been a lay leader serving as the full-time Director of Educational Ministries at UCC Midland. In that role, most of my work centers around children, family, and youth ministry, but I also have the privilege of encouraging adult-led educational pieces. The pandemic has exponentially expanded my technological capabilities in ministry, as well as my relationships with even more of the adults in my congregation. So those have been some big changes there. I also just celebrated my 2-year anniversary as the part-time program associate for youth ministries within the Michigan Conference, where I have the honor to serve and resource Michigan churches and to help uplift youth voices and create experiences that make wider church experiences more accessible to the young people in our conference.
Having been beside you working towards that, I know that we are all benefiting from your place in that role. You know, I think it's really important to say that this is right around the year anniversary. There's a lot of fog in the air. There's a lot of collective trauma we are all holding. And there's sometimes that plays out in brain fog, regardless of where that is. So coming from us, not from Iowa, but from Illinois, Jason, will you tell us a little bit more about where you are and how to hold the complete grace for the great brain fog we all get in times like these?
Yeah, one of my roles in our happy little group is to provide a little comic relief every once in a while, and they are gracious in allowing me to do that. So I live in Woodstock, Illinois. I was excited to see in the chat there's another Woodstockian here from Woodstock, Connecticut. Yay, Woodstock. Woodstock, Illinois is the infamous home of where they filmed the movie Groundhog's Day. And so that's a big deal around here. I've been in ministry, both lay and ordained, for over 20 years. For 10 years as a pastor in Northeast Iowa, serving rural congregations. And we moved to Illinois, and I did hospice work for 5 years and decided to get back into local church ministry. And I'm at First Congregational Church now in Crystal Lake, Illinois. My wife, Chris, of 25 years, teaches in one of the area school districts, and we are empty nesters who occasionally enjoy a brief layover of our boys when they're on break from school or going hither and yon and that kind of thing. And our sons are 25 and 24, Ryan and Andy. The reason I mention them in particular is because they're kind of born in the thick of Gen Z. And so when I have youth questions, sometimes reach out to them, and they're great resources. So FCC is a suburban, progressive and open and affirming congregation in a city of about 40,000 people. And right now we have an average attendance of 425, which is actually up from our pre-COVID numbers of 300. So that's been a really neat experience.
And I know that the work and the resourcing happening through your collective work is not only centered in the United Church of Christ. So I also want to invite Karen to speak more to how you are involved. And as you're getting yourself together, give us a little bit about who you are.
Well, hello, everybody again. I am Karen Smith, And I live in Rocky Point, New York, which is a smallish town towards the east end of Long Island. I've been going to Trinity Lutheran Church for the last 25 years, and I've had positions as Sunday school teacher for both my kids and my grandkids. And I've just been teaching all my life. I was a preschool teacher for years, a Girl Scout leader, a youth group leader. So now in my other position, have worked the last 7 years as a resource consultant, workshop leader, and retreat leader at Practical Resources for Churches. So now instead of teaching little ones, I'm just teaching big ones, which is still fun. Practical Resources for Churches is a non-ecumenical resource center that started out on Long Island. And once the internet hit, we branched out all over the country, and we've gone into webinars that are shown across the world. So it's been really exciting. Thank you.
So I am curious, as we're kind of framing this conversation and the work for the listeners, why is it that it matters to build networks of faith formers? Why does it matter to build networks of those who are doing this work? So even as we come together, thinking about the past year and the work that the role that you've had in the midst of everything, how has it mattered to you? So starting with Barb.
Well, the resources and the ideas that I get from this group are definitely helpful to me. I'm a retired reading specialist, and when I had problems or things that I wanted to know about in that life, I knew where to go for resources. When I got into this, I wasn't quite so sure where I was going to go. And when I volunteered to do this, it turned out to be so much more than just teaching Sunday school with the kids. So I needed ideas. And that sort of ramped up a bit when the pandemic hit. We weren't able to meet in person. So that really changed things. We had to sort of reinvent the way that we were doing things for so long. The people in this group helped me to find things that I could share with people of all ages in my congregation. And not only did that help me to move through this past year, but it also helped me to feel more confident in my role. And that was amazing. I think that was my aha moment this weekend when I was thinking about this, because while I'm building a new knowledge base, I know where I can turn now. I've got some better ideas, but it's the realization that these people are here as a support for me. And I know they're going to be here to encourage me. And that is wonderful. So that was my aha moment from the weekend. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you so much. Karen, why does it matter to you? What has this network or the networks that you've helped create instigate your ministry going forward?
Well, like Barb said, once the pandemic hit, there was kind of a shutdown on everybody, and people were struggling to find ideas of how to do church and Sunday school online on different ideas. I mean, curriculum was kind of just flat. It wasn't internet accessible. And through this group and the resources that we've shared, we've all found a way to accommodate this new way of learning, to have it be on Zoom, be on YouTube. And for me, that's been a great thing because I was never very techie. So this has been a whole learning experience for me, kind of throwing me in the fire. We've also shared books and resources, and it's been a wonderful supportive group. When we get together, we brainstorm, we get those creative juices flowing that we couldn't do by ourselves. So it's been a very supportive way of learning.
Amir, I know that's so important, and all of you are probably itching in your seats being like, how can I get these resources? Fear not, they will be mentioned across the course of this conversation. They will be emailed to you, and if you're watching on YouTube, they will be beneath the video in all that is to follow. So we're listening to the stories, we're building the networks, we're imagining our own networks in various ways, sometimes informed by the communities of practice that are also present, but not exclusive to ordained ministry. I think one of the powerful things happening here is that so many of the people that are involved are not necessarily ordained ministers, but people faithfully carrying the work of faith formation in their congregations and out. So I wanted to name that too, even before I shift and turn to Jen and say, Jen, why does this matter for you?
So this group, I feel, has deeply, deeply, deeply helped me to feel valued, seen, and affirmed in my ministry, like Chris was just talking about. I think that it's so important to validate that if you have been called into faith formation, education ministry, children, family, youth ministry, that you are doing ministry, that you are worthy, and that you are enough. And this group has helped remind me of that. Even before the pandemic, but especially during the last year, I've thought so many times, am I doing this right? Am I doing enough? What do I do now? How the heck am I going to figure that out? And what has happened in this space is that I would show up on Thursday mornings to the Zoom and I would feel comfortable and safe to share those uncertainties. And then those questions turned into, hey, could I do this? Or what do you think? Will this work? Or, hey, what are you doing? And inevitably, someone would have a similar question, and then someone would have a brilliant idea, or share a resource that would fit perfectly. And we planned ahead. So we did weeks ahead of this is coming next. So when we were in Lent, we already started, when it was Halloween, we had already started talking about Advent and things like that. So the planning ahead was a really comforting and helpful thing within this space. So this group also helped me to realize that I have a previously undiscovered talent for managing Zoom chat and sharing resource links. So that was also just affirming and uplifting as a talent. So this network is a space where we meet each other and we meet each other's needs, and that matters a lot.
I will say that skill is really one worth having. Jason, to you.
Yes, Jen is the quickest chat in the Midwest. She, about 3 seconds after a resource is out, it's like, oh, look, it's there in the chat. So I come from a perspective of having started in a new position as a director of children and youth here in Crystal Lake in September of 2020. So I made the switch mid-pandemic after about 5 years of working in hospice and not working directly in the local church, and about 8 years after since I had worked directly with children and youth. And so I really felt like it was kind of a reboot for me. And the congregation in which I'm serving is my first time really serving in a larger suburban progressive O&A congregation. And so all of those things together were at the same time very exciting and a little intimidating. I have been blessed with incredibly helpful pastors and staff, and I'm not just saying that because my senior pastor is on today. And my associate pastor right away connected me with groups that led me to this group, and it's just been great. The sharing of resources, especially having been kind of out of that children and youth domain for so many years, a lot of things have changed. Some of my resources are dated, some still work. But more so, it's been a real source of encouragement and mutual support, not just with resources and ideas, but to share some of the challenges and the struggles along the way, very openly and unashamedly, and broaching challenging topics with one another. So they've really encouraged and affirmed me in my particular ministry, in my particular setting, and we really try to do that for one another.
Thank you so much. Lisa, I know that you started off this conversation and you started off and initiated this idea, and I think it's really worth coming back to you to say, how have this carried you? Why does it matter to you in the storytelling of these networks and the people to whom you are now connected?
Well, I think one of the things that I think is important to highlight is that when I started this, I had no idea what was going to happen. I just wanted to hold space make that space available. And I honestly thought that it would be very short term. It was initially just for people in the Wisconsin Conference, but within a very short time, I was getting requests to expand it, so we did. And the fact that we're still meeting weekly, almost a year from when we started, is a testament to the need for these networks. So that's been affirming for me to know that it really was a need, and that it is something that it kind of has a life of its own, which is wonderful. But for me personally, the group has greatly increased the resources that I have available to share with clergy and faith formation leaders who contact me. As I said earlier, I work in faith formation and justice ministries. And resources that have come out of this group have helped me in all areas of my ministry. It's also increased my awareness of what's happening in our churches and with people in faith formation. And it's helped me to know how I can connect people, because not only can I share a resource with people, but I can share a person. If I know that Jen Ringgold is doing something fantastic, which she always is, I can point people in Jen's direction and get them in touch with her. Same with Jason or Barb or Karen or any of the other people that are that drop in on our group. So that's how.
I have to ask, are you ready for the influx of people who are excited by this conversation to come?
I think so. Yeah. That is actually one of the things that I've thought of, is the importance of being able to have that community and the space to share. I do utilize some of my group counseling skills in trying to make sure that everyone has at least the opportunity to share or to pass if they want. And the larger the group is, the more difficult that becomes. However, we have technology, we have breakout rooms. I mean, there is no reason why, if we have a large number of people on our screens, we couldn't have breakout rooms where people share, and then we come back and people share out from our small group conversations.
All of these technological skills we didn't think we were going to need a year plus ago, and here we are figuring out ways to build community in technological spaces. I know that this group will continue on Thursday mornings, and we're going to talk more a little bit about how it's impacted you. Before we get there, I do want to reassure folk who are watching and listening that the information about how to connect is coming, including the information about what resources they've gathered. So the next question that's going to come to folk is about, how has this impacted your ministry? And I'm going to invite the panelists to be specific in their resourcing in your answer as well. And I know you're all laughing at me because we didn't talk about this, but knowing the folk who are watching wondering what curriculum was that and how can I get to where you are, your specificity will be appreciated. And y'all are giggling behind the screens anyway. From there, I do also want to say, I want to draw a connection here. That is the pandemic and the ways in which we've had adaptation fatigue is hard on all of us. That particularly has been hard on those of you who are leading groups of people that require spiritual care. The impacts on how that has been for clergy have been well studied. I believe that those the things that had the conclusions that have been drawn for clergy also apply to faith formation practitioners. What I mean by that is having networks that support you in the work, having people to collaborate with in the adaptation continues to be a lifesaver. And I say that with clarity on the words I'm using. I know that for some folks, this has been isolating and awful and traumatizing. And we are collectively doing our best to pick up the pieces and serve the people of God. And that means taking care of ourselves too. So with that little addendum by your favorite Chris Davies, I'm going to shift to one example of how this group has impacted your ministry. And Karen, I know that you are well resourced in your own right, but how has this group impacted your ministry?
this group has been a wonderful sounding board to share some of the resources, that practical resources for churches had. The week after the churches closed down, we were online with a webinar the next week on how to do church online, and that went viral. We've done everything about how to do virtual Sunday school, copyright issues with music, and then we went into virtual Advent and virtual Christmas pageants, and we did webinars on those. So I just hope that that has helped everyone. At the same token, for those webinars, I've collected some ideas from this group that's helped me promote those and embellish them. So it's just a real give and take, and a wonderful platform for sharing. So thanks.
I hope that it's impacted you in particular ways of support as well. From there to Jen, how has this impacted your ministry?
So this group and this network of people has made my job and my life easier on every level. And I'm trying to think of specific examples of resources to share. So as I kind of go through my thoughts, I'm hoping that that I can pull some real specific things. If it doesn't feel like I'm doing that, know that we're going to share a link, and maybe Jen will even share it right now, to the Damascus Projects Network, which is where there are topics and all different links to all the different things that we discuss on a weekly basis. So I firmly believe that faith formation happens everywhere in church life and everywhere in general. But like we've uplifted in this space, pieces of faith formation, like planning Sunday school or doing youth group on Zoom, creating vacation Bible school, and generating new ideas for adult studies can sort of sometimes feel separate or parceled off from a more worshipful experience. And so throughout ministry, at so many times I felt like I've been expending tons and tons of energy, and in the pandemic to recreate new things and come up with new ideas and do it different than it's ever been done before, which is all pressure, of course, that I put on myself, and nobody else does that. But there's also lots of giggling in the participants room right now, because we all do that. And so that need to do new things and create new things was really stressful during the pandemic. And so what happened is that I think a lot of us come from spaces where maybe we have supportive local church staffs. Maybe we already have a network with our conference, or maybe we're working as a solo pastor and have no one to talk or bounce ideas off of. And so the fact that we could go to this place where we needed specific ideas for specific things that came up and put it out there. I wish I was coming up with more specific resources. I'm feeling the pressure, Chris.
It's okay. One of the things that we talk about, and I think this is really relevant to ministry in general, is that we aim for excellence and not perfection. This is about resource sharing, and it's about collaborative conversations in the midst of supporting the whole of the church. And when I say the whole of the church, I don't just mean the United Church of Christ. So while the entry point into these specific conversations is the Damascus Project Network, there are so many more ways in which it is impactful of the people that are present. So moving from Jen, I'm going to invite Lisa to speak to some of the impacts on your ministry and work, and recognizing that there are echoes of all of what you're speaking about in the folk who are present and listening and hearing themselves in you.
Thank you. So in my situation, I am not trying to create resources in a local church or to provide faith formation experiences in the local church. But this group for me has made had a profound impact on what I am able to provide as far as support to the people in our local churches. I feel after I've been in my conference position for over 15 years, and I have never felt more resourced, if that's a verb or a word. But you know, I have so many resources coming my way. My library has grown so much because people recommend a book and then I buy it. No, but the resources shared for around racial justice, LGBTQIA resources, all of that. But one, I'm going to share this because I know that the panelists will laugh when they hear me bring it up. One of the resources that was shared early on in our gathering that I tend to hold up every time anything comes up is a book called Liberating Love, 365 Love Notes from God. It's by Sandhya Rani Jha. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a progressive daily devotional, and it is amazing how fitting it is in almost any situation I find myself in ministry or personally. And so, you know, whenever we gather, it just seems like I'm always saying, oh, have you looked at today's devotion? And sharing that. So that has been one of my top go-to resources that came out of this group. And that's just one example of the many things that have been shared.
Go ahead, Jason.
You know, in terms of impact of ministry, you know, coming in mid-pandemic and new setting and all that, it's really been a focal point and an encouragement point for self-care, being a part of this group, both having a community with whom you can share all the, you know, the goods, the bads, and all that kind of stuff. And so from a resourcing perspective, our group was connected with Nicole Havelka and Nicole Havelka Consulting. So the first Thursday of every month, and Nicole's focus in her consulting business is mindfulness. And so the first Thursday of every month, Nicole starts us off with a mindful practice that can be meditative, it can be calming, it can be reflective. And that resource in and of itself is just, we know we can log on the first Thursday of every month, and that's what we're going to start with. And it helps to get your month off to a good start. And in sharing their different resources, my book list on Amazon, I'm going to have to win the lottery to get all of them. But you know, in the children's area, a couple of things we tried that I got ideas from this group during the season of Advent, when we weren't meeting in the church for children or youth. We put together an Advent scavenger hunt by putting pictures that had to do with the stories of Advent and Christmas in the windows of the church, and then provided families with a guide. And so they could come whenever it was convenient for them and walk around the church. And there was a guide that talked about, what is this picture showing? What does it talk about? And that idea of that kind of scavenger hunt came from this group. One of the authors that we've talked about in this group, especially with children's ministry, but more than that, is Glennis Nellist. And I'm getting ready to do another outdoor scavenger hunt thing. It's going to be what Glennis calls a story walk with her book, 'Twas the Morning of Easter. What's really wonderful, especially about Glennis in particular, is she publishes these books, and then she provides resources and additional material on how to use the book for you. And it's just, I've been able to connect with her online. And so we were able to get permission to use the double page spreads, the pictures from her book. And so there will be 15 or 16 stations around the church where people can go and just read that story as a family together, as individuals who just need to get out in the weather, the spring weather. So I'm excited about that this week. Barbara?
Okay. Over the years, I was able to share resources and links via email because my church went on the idea that we were going to be doing a daily email to try to connect everyone and keep everybody up and positive and keep them informed of what was going on. So I was able to share quite a few resources and links via email in that. And there were many different things going out to people of varying ages at different times. And from the feedback that I got there, that was very well received. Several of those resources came from Tracy Smith's Treasure Box Tuesday emails, because you can always find wonderful things there. Breath prayers were very popular with the older members of the congregation, but they're also great calming for kids. So those are really great. And we'll have links to things like that. for you. But since I am a very avid reader, and I too have, I need another bookshelf. I'm a very avid reader, and a new to me author came out from this group, and that was Faye Rowland. She's also a part of a website called The Reflectionary, which can be found at reflectionary.org. That'll be coming to you. And when our group meets this week, I'm going to be sharing some of the Palm Sunday and Easter home activities that I found very recently there. So that was a bonus.
Ooh. There is so much, and there are entry points for you at home to learn more, to see the whole categories and all that follows, as well as to participate in the discussions. Or if you're feeling called to set up your own networks of faith formation, we would recommend that you do so in conversation with how you're holding that going forward with intention. And we will include some of those resources, particularly if you're going to use a community of practice framework, in the follow-up email from here. So we've had these conversations. This year has brought multiple learnings, and there's 2 points that I want to make. The first is that this time last year, we were all producing webinar, like everything, email every day. I heard you say that, Barbara. And I think that one of our roles going forward is to breathe and to decide which of those things we can maintain and sustain. So I want to say that publicly, because I think that the pressure from the reactive stuff from then doesn't need to continue to ripple forever. We can assess the programs that we're doing, decide where there is value and impact, and then move forward with what works. So I wanted to add that into the conversation for those of you who are listening along. The other thing I want to name is that this year brought multiple unveilings. We unveiled in particular ways how our healthcare system works or doesn't, how the systems of racialized oppression work as they are intended to the oppression of multiple people, and that our role as people who are doing faith formation is to be intentional about all of those learnings and as inclusive as possible as we create the brave spaces that attempt equity in moving forward. And I'm being intentional about my language there because I think that this work is aspirational in so many ways. So as you think about being part of this group, my question is, how has it encouraged you to be more intentionally inclusive and welcoming in your ministries? And Barb, you were just going, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right, I will take it. As you know, I'm very serious about books. I'm a book lover, and being a retired reading specialist, working a lot with kids in the classroom, I know the power that books have with kids and adults. Books can offer the opportunity to learn about so many different things in life. They can be welcoming, they can be inviting, and they can open the door to some very beneficial and greatly needed conversations. And in using those, we can learn, we can grow at a variety of different ages. In our weekly conversations, we have discussed many, many topics like the doctrine of discovery, racism, depression, death, suicide. All these topics come to mind, and my brain goes down the library road. You know, what books could I use to encourage conversations, inspire people to do some new thinking, hopefully promoting a deeper understanding, new perspectives, or a more forgiving attitude. The possibilities are endless. And I also want to say, when it comes to kids' picture books, sometimes people look at the picture books and they say, oh, those are for little kids. But some of them tackle some very tough subjects. And some of them can be used with older kids as a springboard for discussion. And don't underestimate the power of picture books. They are phenomenal.
From Barb to whomever, Karen.
Hi, I totally agree with Barb. After teaching preschool, books are my living. And it's been a rough time. There's been a lot of grief going on through this whole pandemic. And our family lost a nephew back in May. So everybody has been affected some way or another, grieving, loss of family, loss of lifestyle, loss of school, loss of their church home. And people have to come to terms with that. And Barb was saying how a picture book can fit the young and the old. And there's one in particular called My Favorite Color is Blue Sometimes by Roger Hutchinson. We have a relationship with Paraclete Press where sometimes they send us books to look at. And this book is just wonderful. So it's a resource I totally recommend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Jason, as you're thinking about how this group has encouraged you to be more intentionally inclusive and welcoming, what is it that comes to mind?
So the first thing that comes to mind, as I said, this is my first time serving in a progressive, suburban, open and affirming congregation. And so it was a new setting for me. Most of my experience is in rural communities, small communities that are very white. I got samples of, I was introduced to a lot of cultures in my hospice work in the Chicago metro area. Being where I am now, I'm working with youth that are openly gay, openly trans, and we share that. This group provided me a place to begin to explore progressive understanding and working in progressive settings. The staff, my senior pastor and associate here, have been very open and encouraging with those conversations. And it's wonderful to go in with the questions and know nobody's going to look at me funny. Nobody's going to criticize anything. I can be really open about, help me understand this better and how it affects everyone we serve. Because I've been in churches where I say as a pastor, everyone is welcome, even though I know, even as I say it, that's not the case.
I love that you mentioned that oftentimes there is a place where we say all is welcome, and we mean that aspirationally, but the actions that go along with creating welcome are specific, named, and really well known, and often informed by the communities we need to be clear about welcoming. So a lot of that work goes there. Lisa, when you think about your work, how has this group helped you be more inclusive and welcoming?
Well, I think for me, one of the things this group has done a lot for me is to remind me of the great variety of in our churches and the people who attend our churches, the diversity that's out there, because this group is far more diverse than just the people that I serve in the Wisconsin Conference. And so periodically we'll be talking about something and someone in the group will say, that's not going to work in my setting. And then as a group, it kind of makes us stop and go, oh, and then we work through that together. And so that's actually a great model for us to use when we're, outside of this group working with our churches as well. So that's been a benefit for me. The other thing is that I've really focused a lot on how we welcome and include people with mental health challenges. And so, recognizing the welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged congregations and sharing that with this group, finding ways to share those resources has also been really important for me.
I think that's critical work going forward, particularly as we are not yet aware of the longevity of the mental health impacts of how this past year will be for all of us. And I know that those of you who are listening and witnessing hear me say this over and over and over and over. And I think it needs to be said, this is a collective trauma. We are all moving through it. It is the community care that will keep us through. And it is our work as spiritual practitioners to continue to research and know what that community care is for the people we are serving in the contexts where we serve, and show up as best we can. Having places to be held in the midst of that are just as important. So while this, you've heard me talk some about encouraging of your own creation of networks in some capacity and a framework of a community of practice. But I also want to be clear that this isn't quite a community of practice. So when you think about, Lisa, when you think about some of the best practice skills that are helpful for folks who may be thinking about reaching out to the people around them, who may be thinking about reaching out to their conference networks in ways if they don't already have that set up, what are some of those best practices, and how is this different from a community of practice?
Well, thanks for asking that, because I do want to be clear that we are different than a community of practice. We use some of the ideas of a community of practice, but in the Wisconsin Conference, we actually are fortunate enough to have faith formation communities of practice. And many of those people are part of this group as well. One thing that's different about this group is the fact that we do not have an official group covenant, because we don't really have an official group. We have people that show up on a regular basis, but we also have people that just drop by occasionally. And where a community of practice is a group that covenants and commits to meet together at a certain time. And so we do not have that. The other thing is that a community of practice has a trained facilitator. And while, yes, I have training, I am not necessarily officially the trained facilitator of this group. We all take roles in doing that. So that would be one thing to be aware of. I would say if you are thinking of starting a group, one of the things that would be really important would be to get some resources on small group facilitation. You know, something that you can just become familiar with and use those skills so that people do have space to share, and that you're making sure that all voices are being heard and feel welcomed. The other thing that would be a best practice is, if something comes up in a group that is bigger than what you can handle and is outside of your scope of practice or ministry, reach out and get help or refer them somewhere. That is something that I'm always kind of keeping an eye on. Fortunately, with our group, that has not come up at this point, but it is something that I always try to be aware of. But, you know, don't try to handle something that is beyond what you're trained to handle. And yeah, I guess that's the best advice that I can give.
Thank you so much. I know that this conversation is in the ecosystem of many, many different groups. So this is, you are also related and connected to AUSSE. There's AUSSE is the Association of United Church Educators. And there's cross conversations happening there. How are you connected to the Damascus process itself, PRC, and interfacing with AUSSE? PRC?
Yeah.
Is that an acronym I know?
Practical Resources for Churches.
Oh, yes, there it is. UCC and our acronyms. Sometimes I have to check myself in the midst of it too. Do I know that one?
So I think our interfacing with PRC has kind of been explained today. Karen's with us on a regular basis. Occasionally someone else, some of the other consultants from PRC join us, but we do try to do a lot of work back and forth. She resources us, and sometimes we're providing resources that they can use. And we try to share those resources out. With the Association of United Church Educators, or AUSSE, just one of those things that we make sure there are people that are connected to that are aware that this group exists and that they're welcome to join us. We lift up resources that AUSSE is promoting so that people in our group are aware of it as a resource. I'm not sure how much they get from us, but perhaps they get something from us. And then the Damascus project is probably the biggest connection to be aware of, because in the new year, in 2021, I found I was spending hours along with Jen putting together the resources that were being curated in this group and getting them out to people. And I had, when I would have a pastor call, I was trying to share the resources, but I just had this big mess of resources to share. And so we decided to partner with the Damascus Project, which is a leadership and faith formation platform that is co-hosted by the Minnesota Conference and the Wisconsin Conference of the United Church of Christ. And we found a way that we could have a community presence there. It's called a cohort. And so in order to connect with that, you sign up to have an account with the Damascus Project, which is at no cost. And then once you are a part of the Damascus Project, you can join the Faith Formation and Youth Ministry Leaders cohort. Once you're in there, it is an online community where we can post messages to each other. You can private message people if you need to connect with them. But we also post our resources there. And Jen has been our go-to for making sure that that happens. But our resources can also be tagged by topic. And so when someone is in there, they can click on a topic. If you are looking for Lent and or Easter resources, you can click on that topic, and anything that has ever been shared that's tagged that way is accessible. The other thing is that there are courses offered through the Damascus Project that are connect with us, and we do try to refer people to those as well as a resource. So
thank you so much. As we are beginning to do the wrap-up dance, I'm curious if there is anything left unsaid that any one of you panelists is like, oh, I should have said that, or I really wanted to mention this, or something tickling at your brain that you want to add in. Go ahead, Jen.
Real quick, I wanted to say another way that this group interfaces is with the national NOWSM network of
Wider Church Ministries.
Thank you. Wider Church Youth Ministries. Oh my goodness, Tracy Potter sitting in the background, like whatever. That we also have the link to national resources as well. So OSSI is national, but so is national. And so we have people who are in this group who are on planning teams for the Youth at Synod programming, and who are working with national staff and bringing those resources to the group as well. So I wanted to make sure we uplifted that.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you. It's like all of you are each little pollinators, bringing these informational things from one place to all the other places around and about. And I can't say how impactful that is, even beyond the networks that you have. Karen, did you want to add in more?
I do. I just wanted to say, if anybody is interested in seeing what kind of resources the PRC has, our email is www.prcli.org. So you can check us out on there.
Thank you so much. All of that's going to be coming to you if you are watching on YouTube. Beneath the screen, we'll have all those links that have been mentioned through this information, as well as in an email if you've registered. From there, I want to say that if this has given you something that you can kind of hold on to, if this has been meaningful and impactful for your ministry today and all the days, or if this has given a word of hope that you knew you needed, please consider donating to the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. I also want to let you know about a couple of things upcoming in the midst of all of this. The first is tomorrow there will be a service of remembrance and healing called Journey to the Waters. And then back into our Tuesday, Thursday series on Thursday of this week, we're going to be learning alongside and listening deeply to Reverend Yvonne Delk and Reverend Tracy Potter in Tracy Blackman. Reverend Yvonne Delk and Reverend Tracy Blackman speaking to the history of Afro-Christian churches in the United Church of Christ. And those, alongside much more, are coming. As we move into Holy Week, know that our Tuesday session will be about the stories of love that are dismantling stigma. And we will be having a Maundy Thursday service here during Thursdays for the Soul. So, with all sorts of excitement and with a pass to Jen Ringgold to close us in how you see fit, from here to Jen.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. I just wanted to uplift the fact that I personally held my local church position for years before learning to engage with the wider church. And I had no idea that there were groups out there like this that existed. And once I found networking with planning for regional youth events and realized that other people wanted to talk about doing this work. That's how I met Lisa, how I got connected to this group, and eventually helped expand the Michigan Conference to even start talking about building networks like this in our conference. Building networks in the church can actually be a really challenging endeavor, and especially in faith formation. I'm still striving to invite and engage other folks who champion youth in the Michigan Conference, and I don't feel anywhere close to having that dream realized, that I've connected with everyone. I know there's still lots of hard work to do. It can be hard to imagine adding one more thing to our workloads or Zoom calendars, but my word of encouragement is to you that finding others to be in community with, to collaborate with, I think is one of the most important ways that we can consider caring for ourselves. It is my hope, and I think the hope of everyone here on the panel, that what we have uplifted and shared here today in this group and the model that it represents is an offering. An example of a way to try to create an easier path forward for faith formation leaders, but frankly, anyone in ministry of any kind, by connecting, networking, and supporting one another in our unique work. Thank you.
And so let us take a deep breath and join in prayer towards the rest of our day. Holy One, bless each one of us in this work. Connect us to each other. Connect us, God, always to you. Help us to create the kind of networks and communities that we are called to in service to the ongoing work of your word in this world. And God, help us to discern through all the information, to find that which fits our contexts, and to prayerfully engage with you, with each other. And in the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. Siblings and sisters and brothers in Christ, if this conversation has moved you, if what's been offered here has helped enhance your ministry or your soul, please consider donating towards the annual fund of the United Church of Christ by texting UCC to 41444. Your support will help programs like this in the essential work of the United Church of Christ. Thank you for your support. Be blessed into the rest of your day and know that you are not alone, and we are holding you in prayer. Amen.